You can find this podcast and others at Gun Rights Radio Network, gunrightsradio.com. Podcasting freedom.
Well, and welcome to episode 52 of Shooting the Breeze, the formal gun podcast of WaltInPA.com. I am Walt White, and we are officially beyond our 1-year podcast point. We just crossed over our anniversary period, and entering in season 2, if you will, I want to make some changes to the format of the podcast. Over the past year, I've been really happy with the flow and the way things have worked. However, if there was one point in the podcast where I can sort of point to it and say, this is where I would love to see improvement, it would be more interaction between listeners and viewers. And in order to do that, I think I'm going to slide in a new segment which I'm going to call Ask the Audience. And the premise is really simple. I'm just going to present you with a discussion topic or a question each podcast, and then hopefully you respond to it, and I can then take that response and feature it the following week. So, for instance, this week I have a piece that I'm going to tack on toward the end. We're going to do this near the end of the podcast, where I discuss some events that took place. I'll give you a breakdown of what was going on, a little side information on the whole ordeal, and then I'm just going to turn it over to you. After you digest that information, you can respond to it in a variety of ways. You can stick with the standard text response in any of the formats you've ever used before. Email works just fine. Just title the subject line something that stands out so that I can separate it from anything else that may come in. You can comment on the show notes themselves. You can comment on YouTube. You can also use the YouTube video response feature, which would be fantastic because then I could take your video and plug it in to the next episode. Or you can use this newer service that I'm trying out. I think it's called SpeakerPipe or something like that. It's an audio application that embeds itself in the browser. So you just open up the page, you click record. It will begin recording sound through your microphone. You can, when you're finished recording, you confirm that you want to send it to me, and then everything is contained within the browser. It fires off that voicemail, more or less, to me. I get it, I can download it, and then I can then take that file and inject it into a later podcast. And when I do that in a following show, you're going to get the last word. So this week I don't have anything to feature since it's the first one. So what we're going to do is we'll discuss what's going on. We'll throw it out there for you to respond to. When you respond, hopefully you will respond, and I won't have to come on next week and say I didn't get any responses. But at any rate, next week I'll then take your response. We'll feature 1 or 2 of them, maybe 3 of them if we have time, and that'll be the end of it. You get the last word. We sign off, and then we move right into the following week's discussion topic, or ask the audience topic. I'm really looking forward to it. I think that it will get me the interaction that I'm looking for. I want to have more of a relationship with the listeners and viewers. And right now, while I really appreciate the comments that are coming in, the emails that are coming in, they're coming in at sort of a trickle. And I want to see more interaction between me and the audience. So I think this is one way to do it. In an effort to maintain that 45 minutes to an hour time frame that I've been sticking to for the past year, I'm going to need to make some cuts elsewhere. So what I've decided to do is trim back the news and featured content to 2 items rather than 3. And I'm really not quite sure whether that's going to get me in that sweet spot that I want. The only way I'm going to be able to tell is to run a couple of episodes and just see firsthand what happens. If we still wind up over, I'm going to have to figure out a way to trim a little bit more. If we wind up under consistently, then I'll add 1 back in and go from there. Ideally, I still want to land in that 45 minutes to an hour time frame, and I don't want to take out a lot of stuff in order to get that Ask the Audience feature in there. So we're just going to kind of play it by ear, and that is the plan going forward for season 2, if you will. If you've been listening to this podcast for a little while now, you know what's coming right now, and that is another plug for the contest that I'm running on my blog, which is WaltInPA.com. I'm giving away 12 copies of Shoot, Your Guide to Shooting in Competition. I'm a couple of months into this contest. It's a year-long thing, And this month I've changed it up so that it requires actual action rather than typing out a response on your browser or your keyboard and such. You actually have to print out a target and hit the range and shoot the target. And as a result, the entries this month have been pretty light, which is exactly what I was expecting. Whenever you get more involved than typing out a simple response, your entries tend to drop off. I learned that really fast with StogieReview.com, which is sponsoring the contest, by the way. And I was okay with the drop-off. I'm actually really happy with the entries that we got. I think they're fantastic. I would much rather have high-quality entries than high-volume entries. So we've got, I think, 9 as of last night. And even though we only have 9 entries, I'm really happy with those 9 entries. If you would like to enter for a chance to win a signed copy of Shoot Your Guide to Shooting a Competition, written by Julie Golub and autographed by Julie Golub, head over to WaltInPA.com. At the top of the page, there's a big image slider. The second image in that slider will be a photo of Julie's book. Click on the photo and the contest page will load. You'll see all the details in there, and within those details is a link to download the target in PDF format. You download the target, you print the target, you post the target at your range, you step away 10 yards, and you begin firing at the target. 3 rounds in the 3-inch diameter bullseye, and you are entered. All you have to do is take a photo and post it in the comment section. It's pretty simple, and it's been pretty fun. So hit the range after you listen to this podcast, of course, and get your entries in. Ever since I went to Orlando, I've been feeling kind of out of the loop. And it hasn't been real long. I mean, I left beginning of August. I came back a couple of days later. And even in that short period of time, there was a lot of stuff that was going on within the gun community. And it was difficult for me to catch up to what I missed and then sort of fall back into the rhythm. So as a result, I've been really behind. It actually got so bad that recently I just wiped Google Reader clean. I didn't wipe all the subscriptions, but I marked everything as red because I was just getting sick of seeing 1,000 plus items every single time I logged in. No matter how many items I chipped away at, there was just so many that were left unread or unscanned. So I cleared it out last week, and then I've been focusing just on newer items for, the podcast show notes. And one of the repeat items that just continued to pop up day after day after day were these gun buybacks. I don't know whether it's just this time of year or what the case is, but I'm seeing a lot of them, and not just one specific buyback in one specific city. These are buybacks all over the country. Yesterday I must have scanned through at least 5 of them from different news organizations. The one I want to talk about comes out of Oregon. It was originally posted by Opposing Views on August 19th by Ashley Davis. It goes on to say, gun buyers flocked to the Memorial Coliseum in Oregon this Saturday to purchase firearms from those who plan to turn them in to police for eventual destruction. According to Oregon Live, those who returned guns at the turn-in event received a $75 gift card to Fred Mayer. Those who decided to sell their guns instead to one of the dozens lining up around the sidewalks and parking lots received a lot more. As people flocked to turn in their guns, gun enthusiasts shouted prices like auctioneers. $150 for the revolver, sir, gun buyer David West shouted. It's not too late. Unfortunately for West, the man decided to turn over the firearm for the gift card at the Ceasefire Oregon Education Foundation turn-in. The event took place for 4 hours where owners of guns could give their weapons to Foundation volunteers. Portland police also handled the weapons. All guns received will eventually be destroyed. Foundation volunteer Liz Julie said, I believe the majority of people would not show up here today if they did not want their gun removed from circulation. Some people, however, knew about the financial opportunities of selling their guns to outside buyers. David West traveled from Medford, planning to purchase some quality guns from those intending to turn them in. His first purchase of the day was a Remington Nylon 66 .22 caliber rifle, which he purchased for $20. He resold it almost immediately to another buyer for $100. Gun buyers said they purchased the weapons mostly because they have great resale value. Others said they wanted to prevent firearms from going out of circulation. A diesel mechanic who attended the turn-in said people are likely to turn in their guns because they're afraid of them. I think they're intimidated by a firearm. They're scared of a firearm, Campbell said. That's why they're bringing them in. Campbell also said the experience at the turn-in was disconcerting and amusing. You see a stranger standing on a sidewalk saying, "Hey, I want to buy your gun." You got to admit, I thought it sounded kind of funny, Campbell said. Many would think the police would take issues with the gun buyers lining the sidewalks and streets, but the Central Precinct Sergeant Tim Sessions said they didn't have a problem with them. They have a right to buy guns, Sessions said. That's in the Constitution, so that doesn't bother me a bit. He also emphasized the fact that the buyers know what they're doing and know the laws well, so they are unlikely to resell to, quote, undesirables, end quote. He explained that that's not the case. These people know what they're doing, they know the laws, they know they'd lose that right if they did sell them to undesirables. Sessions also said gang members were unlikely to attend the turn-in. They really like to see the gangs turn in their guns, he said, and I tell them, keep wishing that, but it's not going to happen. More typical sellers are those who had forgotten weapons in basements or closets and had no use for them. The turn-in event was successful, gathering 244 firearms and a crossbow. Liz Julie, the volunteer, said she could recount 5 instances where a family tragedy was linked to gun violence, including her mother's suicide. So basically, I do this in honor of her, Julie said. So that concludes the article, and I've got to say, I love the fact that we've got pro-gun enthusiasts out there trying to buy the weapons back from people that are turning them in for this gift card. I'm not familiar with, was it Sam Frayer? Must be, a local Oregon store of some sort, or business of some sort. But, I really like that there were pro-gun activists out there purchasing weapons, and I'm even happier that the police were okay with it. It wouldn't surprise me to see a news story saying that, the police were shutting that down, or, police were threatening or making arrests to individuals trying to purchase weapons from the gun buyback. I really appreciate this guy, this sergeant, his beliefs in that it's within their constitutional rights to do so, and they are more knowledgeable about laws than your average person. And he just lets him run with it. I think that's fantastic. Oddly enough, it's not all that way in Oregon. I recently read another article where I think it was the Oregon Chief of Police was talking about more stringent gun control. So for every police sergeant that at least seems tolerant, you have another person in the organization. For instance, in this instance, a police chief who was, thumping his fist on the desk, shouting for more gun control, or shouting for stricter gun control measures. But I really like the way this story went. I'm not too happy with 244 guns being destroyed and removed from circulation, but I hope it was worth the $75 gift card to remove that tool from society. The second news item that I have for you comes from On Deadline, USA Today, and it is entitled "Colorado U to Segregate Dorms for Students with Gun Permits." This was published yesterday, which would be August 20th, by Douglas Stanglin. And this goes on to say, the University of Colorado will segregate dorms for students who have valid permits to carry concealed weapons, the Denver Post reports. The newspaper says student housing contracts at CU Boulder and CU Colorado Springs will be amended to accommodate students over the age of 21 who have concealed carry permits. The policy change follows a Colorado Supreme Court decision in March upholding an appeals court ruling that struck down CU's gun ban. I believe we have taken reasonable steps to adhere to the ruling of the Colorado Supreme Court, while balancing that with the priority of providing a safe environment for our students, faculty, and staff, says CU Boulder Counselor Philip DiStefano in a statement on the university's website. In Boulder, students who want to carry their gun must live in the family housing units downtown, while those in Colorado Springs will have to live in upperclassmen dorms. In all other dorms, guns will be banned, the Post reports, quoting university officials. Residence hall students may still store weapons at the University of Colorado Police Department on campus, which is open and available for drop-off and pickup of weapons 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, CU Boulder says. Those who live off the main campus must store their weapon in a safe within their home when they are not carrying it, KUSA-TV reports. Students with gun permits will also be barred from bringing guns to ticketed athletic and cultural events on campus. The Daily Camera, a Boulder newspaper, reports that the new rules are troubling to James Manley, the attorney from Mountain States Legal Foundation, who represents the students' gun rights group that brought the original lawsuit against CU's gun ban. We're going to take a hard look at the language, and if it conflicts with the Concealed Carry Act ruling of the Supreme Court, all options are open to us, including continuing litigation that CU lost in March, Manley says, according to the Camera. Officials in Boulder say they can accommodate about 50 students with permits, although they don't expect to have that many. The Post quotes a Colorado Springs University official as saying they estimate that fewer than 1% of their student body population of nearly 10,000 will have a concealed carry permit. So, generally this is where I offer my opinion on this particular news item, or any news item for that matter. However, this week we're doing things a little bit different. Originally, I was planning on having Tom from Fill Your Hands come in and do a featured content post. Basically, I just wanted him to talk about something I was planning on featuring in the featured content section. However, there was some other things brought to light, and that whole situation didn't really work out. So instead, we shifted Tom's focus to this particular news item. So in this instance, now you're going to hear Tom's input, and I'm just going to kind of leave it at that, let him have the last word. So sit back and enjoy.
Well, hey Walt, this is Tom from the Fill Your Hands blog at fillyourhands.com. I want to send you some comments about a recent article in the Denver Post that made headlines. CU to segregate dorms for students with concealed carry permits. Well, first, some background. In 2011, Students for Concealed Carry brought a lawsuit against the University of Colorado in Boulder and Colorado Springs because the university didn't allow students with valid concealed carry permits to carry guns on campus. In March 2012, the Colorado Supreme Court ruled that the Board of Regents wasn't a governmental agency under the law, so it didn't have the authority to regulate the carrying of guns. And further, since the wording in the law specifically said, quote, in all the state, it didn't allow for distinction for college campuses. Well, on August 16th came an announcement that started like this. The University of Colorado Boulder today announced it is amending housing contracts to ask students who live in undergraduate residence halls and hold a Colorado Concealed Carry Permit, or CCP, to forego bringing a handgun to campus. The campus also will accommodate those who hold a CCP in a graduate student housing complex off the main campus, provided the permit holders store their weapons in a safe within their dwelling when they're not carrying it. Well, I sent you a link to the whole press release and to the Denver Post article. Now, I understand fully that the Regents have a responsibility to the students and the faculty of the university to provide a safe campus. It should also be noted, and this is CU's own numbers, that only 4% of the students living in the dorms are over 21 and can even have a permit in the first place. And only 0.6% of students, faculty, and staff have a permit. So admittedly, this won't affect many students. But what I see here is two distinct issues. First, the Regents are again setting limits on who can carry guns on campus and where. And to me, that's a direct violation of the Supreme Court ruling. And they're preventing students who live in the dorms on campus from exercising their rights. Second, the Regents are setting up the dorms on campus as a gun-free victim zone. This is the heart of the concealed carry issue. Almost all the mass shootings in recent history, from Columbine to the recent movie theater shooting in Aurora, took place in areas where it was against the law to carry guns. And since criminals ignore the laws in the first place, ignoring this one is nothing, and it just makes their job easier. Of course, many people who are against concealed carry argue that gun-free victim zones are needed, that no one could have stopped these attacks because a lone armed citizen is no match for a determined attacker. Well, first, in response to that, let me point you to the recent viral YouTube video at the Internet Cafe in Florida, where a 71-year-old man named Samuel Williams successfully fought off 2 robbers with his gun. But second, consider this. I think the real protection in concealed carry for us as a community and as a country lies not so much in the lone armed citizen, although that's important. The real protection is in numbers, and more importantly, in unknown numbers. You see, when the bad guy doesn't know who might be armed, he's more likely to avoid the place altogether. And that's what makes gun-free victim zones dangerous. The bad guys know there's no opposition, so they're free to do as they please. And if they don't know who they'll run into, they'll change their mind. Now, if you need proof of this, look at the town where I live, Kennesaw, Georgia. Since 1982, it's been a city ordinance that requires the head of each household to maintain a gun in their home. Yeah, there's been a lot of back and forth press about this. Does it really work? Do all the households have guns? Who knows? But do you think the bad guys want to find out? Nope. And Kennesaw's crime rate remains the lowest in the nation. Well, so it is with the segregated dorms at the University of Colorado. The problem is not with the students who are armed, because they're armed legally. No, if I were a student, even if I didn't have a permit, I'd lie about it or get a permit. The administration at the University of Colorado is setting up all the dorms on campus as gun-free victim zones. And the last thing I want to do is live in a target. I'd want the bad guys to wonder just who might be armed and go somewhere else. Well, as always, I call that bold talk for a one-eyed fat man.
Before I get into the first featured content item, I'd like to thank Tom for that well-articulated answer. He points out a lot of the things that came to mind when I read the article, and I think he did a fantastic job with it. So if you'd like to hear more from Tom, maybe you can pester him a little bit and nudge him to provide more of those types of responses to, be it featured content or news items. But in any case, I really enjoyed it, Tom. Thanks a lot. I really appreciate it. The first piece of featured content that I have is entitled The Squirrel Report. It's actually episode 22. And I wasn't familiar with this podcast up until recently. I hadn't even heard of it until like last week sometime. I'm not quite sure where I stumbled onto it. I think it may have been through Breda on Facebook. But whatever the case was, I found myself on the Squirrel Report homepage and staring at this sort of squirrel silhouette with the antenna coming out of his head and the little squiggly lines for the the radio waves. And I thought, this kind of looks kind of strange and kind of cool, and I want to check it out. I wasn't in a position where I could listen to it right then and there, but I subscribed to the RSS feed, and my plan was to listen to it later. So this weekend I was shooting a USPSA match down in Kennett Square. It's about an hour and 20-minute drive, and I needed something to do to fill the time. Usually, me and a couple of other guys will carpool down to the match. However, this week I was setting up and none of the other guys were. So I was driving it alone. I needed something to do in the car. And immediately I thought, you know what, I'll put the podcast on my iPhone. I'll plug it in the auxiliary input in my car, and I'll just listen to it on the way down. And since it's a little over 2 hours, I'll listen to it part way home. So that's what I did. I downloaded the podcast, I started listening, and I started driving. And immediately I started laughing. The introduction to the show was just hysterical. It was completely unfirearm related, off-topic, adult commentary. And I just found myself laughing out loud as I was driving down the road. As we got more into the podcast, I found that I kind of enjoyed the flow. It's very laid back. And it's basically a conversation. How the hosts, which include Breda from Breda Fallacy, JG from Marooned, Alan, who I'm not familiar with, and Weird Beard from Weird World, they all get together on what sounds like Skype, and they have a conversation and they do call-ins. So throughout the show, they'll just be holding a conversation. It flows from one topic to another, and occasionally you'll get a call-in. They'll talk about one thing, or they'll add to the chaos, and it's just kind of a fun thing. This particular episode did not have Weird Beard on it, who I was kind of hoping to hear a little bit from, because I'm most familiar with his blog of all the others, and you know, I was just kind of looking forward to hearing him for the first time. That didn't work out, but the other three hosts did a fantastic job. I just really enjoyed it. I laughed a lot. There were several adult commentary topics covered, you know, not child friendly, but it was just nice, relaxed, and it was fun. I just thought it was a fun 2-hour podcast, and I'll definitely be checking in later. One of the little bonus features on the podcast, in addition to the live caller stuff, was a call-in from Miguel from Gun Free Zone, and he went on I don't want to say a rant, but he was really passionate about his love for Space Odyssey 2001, and I was laughing partway through it. I was kind of interested partway through it. It was kind of cool. Hearing Miguel for the first time was interesting, because immediately when he started talking, I thought, wow, he sounds just like Jesus Fuego from J Fuego Cigars. But at any rate, definitely enjoyed the podcast. It was well worth that 2 hours that I had to kill, and I would most definitely suggest that you head over to the Squirrel Report and check it out after you've finished with shooting the breeze, of course. The second and final piece of featured content comes from the PA Gun blog, which is Shall Not Be Questioned. And in this instance, I don't want to say I was scraping the bottom of the barrel, but as I mentioned earlier, I was really behind on things, and in an effort to streamline the show notes, because it was getting late and I just needed to get it done, and that one item that I had with Tom sort of fell through, I fired up Google Reader and I started looking over some of my older starred content, which is stuff that I sort of favorite, for lack of a better term, to feature later on, or to re-review later on for potentially putting in the podcast. And I came across something from Shall Not Be Questioned on inexpensive gun safes, or cheap gun safes, I should say. And it's basically a YouTube video where you have a father recording like a 3-year-old kid crack open just a barrage of cheap gun safes. And his method ranges from simply tipping the safe over and letting it drop on its side, to using a coat hanger to kind of reach inside and just yank on the lever and it pops right open. It was just really amazing how easy it was for this child to open up this cheap gun safe. Now, we're not talking about like these big standing several 100-pound units that sit in the corner of your home. These are the bedside table kind of firearm lockers. For instance, I have a gun vault. It's just basically this little odd-shaped box that sits beside the bed. It's got a digital keypad with fingers. You just push the numbers, beep, beep, beep. The door flies open. You reach in and get your gun. All of these safes were very similar to that. I don't think any of them were gun vaults. I hope none of them were gun vaults. But it's just really amazing how effortless this kid got these safes open. There's really no way of knowing how coached the child was in getting through these safes. I mean, it's one thing for an adult to spend an hour figuring out how to break into this safe and then teaching their kid how to do it if it's a very simple process. I mean, if all it takes is just tipping the thing over and letting it bang, and, for whatever reason, maybe the solenoid gets bumped and the spring-loaded hinge just gives way and the door flies open, or if it's just a matter of, hey, kid, come here, look, put this hanger in here and just yank on it and the door flies open. There's really no way of knowing how much coaching was involved, but even if there were coaching involved, a child that young is just startling how easy they can get into one of these safes. So head over to PA Gun Blog, Shall Not Be Questioned, and check out these cheap safes and how easy it is to get into them. It will sort of put a little bit of fear into you if you spent like $19.99 on your deluxe double capacity gun safe that's sitting beside your bed. So check it out. It's well worth the few minutes. Welcome to the cigar and drink pairing portion of the podcast. This is actually one of my favorite parts of the show, being that cigars is another passion of mine, so it's always nice to mix in, one beloved hobby with another, cigars and guns. It's just a match made in heaven, I think. But at any rate, the cigar and drink portion of the podcast Comes with Dunkin' Donuts coffee. I've talked about it time and time again. I'm having just massive difficulties getting my Keurig machine to brew pre-ground coffee or just my own K-Cups. So for the time being, I'm just not even going to bother with it. I'm just going to continue buying K-Cups because it's easy and it's good coffee. So Dunkin' Donuts coffee, I enjoy it. I think it's really good. I far prefer the actual out of the coffee machine stuff at Dunkin' Donuts, but you know, the K-Cups are nice as well. The cigar, on the other hand, is the Davidoff Colorado Claro. This is an expensive cigar. It's about $21.30 from Buckhead Cigar in Atlanta, Georgia. And Davidoff has a reputation for incredible consistency within their line. Cigar manufacturers, they employ blenders, and when they create a blend, a cigar, every year, crop availability, tobacco, and things, they're different from year to year to year. And the master blender's job is to ensure that this year's crop is very consistent, as consistent as possible to last year's in the taste department, in the burn department. You know, you want, if you pick up a cigar a year ago and you've determined that it's your favorite cigar, you absolutely love it, you want it to be the same when you pick it up a year later. And when you're dealing with something like tobacco, it's growing out of the ground, and you know, it's changes in weather affect the taste and the burn and everything like that. It's very important that you get consistency, and Davidoff has probably the best consistency within the industry, I would think. Their lines are really impressive. Their quality control is top notch for the most part. I've had a couple of bum Davidoffs, but they were very few and far between. They're not nearly as common as some of the other cigars that I've had that are much lower priced. The Davidoff line it's high end, especially the white label stuff. The Colorado Claro, again, $20+ for this cigar. If you're fairly new to cigars, I would not suggest trying this. You're just not going to get $21 back out of it. If you've been smoking cigars for a while, you enjoy the hobby, and you want that special occasion cigar, the Davidoff Colorado Claro is a definite. Yeah, it's definitely a good, solid cigar for those special occasions, and I would certainly recommend it. But I wouldn't recommend buying these on a regular basis, not unless you've got a job making gobs of money and you've just got money to burn, because again, they're very expensive, and I smoke them very, very, very rarely. It's good, medium-bodied cigar. It's got a nice woody flavor to it. The smoke is kind of creamy in texture. It lingers on the palate for a fairly short period of time. It's sort of crisp and clean. It doesn't leave you with that dragon breath sort of taste in your mouth afterwards. You know, it's not common among cigars to get that, but occasionally it crops up. But all in all, I think it's a good, solid cigar. Again, they are expensive. I just want to preface that they're expensive, so don't go running out to a cigar shop expecting to pick one up for $6. It's just not going to happen. So, if you would like to try the Davidoff Colorado Claro or any of the Davidoff white label lines, my friend Mike over at Buckhead Cigars has them in stock. If you're interested in purchasing from Mike, you can pick up the phone and give him a call at 404-844-0400. Ask for Mike. Tell him you heard about his shop on Shooting the Breeze podcast with Walt, and tell him what you want. He'll box it up for you, he'll ship it to you, and you're all set. You can smoke them right out of the box. He packages them very well, he ships them very well, and he's one of the fewer cigar retailers where I can order something, it'll come in a fairly short period of time, even in the summer or winter months, and I can take it right out of the package and smoke it. He ships everything with humidipacks, humidity controlled bags and things, and just a top-notch retailer. My favorite. If you're interested in seeing some of the product that Mike has, you can head over to AskTheCigarGuys.com. It's not a retail site, but it is a listing of some of the new and featured stuff that Mike is selling. All of the prices include shipping, so what you see is what you pay. If you just want to kind of feel Mike out before you make a purchase, he's on social media, on Twitter, Facebook, and Google Plus as Buckhead Cigar. So that is going to close out the cigar and drink pairing of the episode. In this week's discussion portion of the podcast, I want to talk a little bit about my brand spanking new Concealment Solutions Black Mamba holster. As I mentioned in a previous episode, I finally decided on a holster for my new Gen 4 Glock 19, and it was going to be Concealment Solutions. I put the order in, and immediately I received the response. My order was received. Given so many days until I could expect shipment of said holster, and thank you for your business. Before that 5 days was up or whatever it was, I got another email letting me know that the holster had shipped. So right away, I'm pretty happy with this. It looks like I purchased a quality holster. I received what looked like a well-crafted response email for my order. It seemed as though, oh man, I can't think of the guy's name. The owner of Concealment Solutions completely slipped my mind. But at any rate, it seems as though he really appreciated my business, and he gave me a realistic time frame in which to expect my holster. He over-delivered. He gave me my holster early. That's always a good thing. And it arrived in 2 or 3 days, something like that. It looked like priority mail, I think. And I get the padded envelope. I tear it open. It's got a couple of business cards in there. There's a letter from Jason Christensen explaining, holster, how to break it in, what to do, how to adjust it, what to do after you adjust it, putting Loctite or nail polish on the threads of the screws after you find that sweet spot. And all in all, I was just really happy with the purchase. The holster felt like it was made of good quality leather. It was smooth on the back, which I love. The one thing I absolutely hate about my other brand of hybrid holster is that it's really rough on the back, and I have to wear an undershirt between me and the holster. Otherwise, it makes my side really chafed and sore. So, wow, what is the name of that? It's Crossbreed. Crossbreed is the holster that I have that I dislike the back of. But at any rate, and the kydex seemed really thick. It was just, all in all, I was really happy with it. But because I was going to Florida the day after, I wasn't able to put the holster on and really wear it and get accustomed to wearing the holster with a loaded gun in it. So it wasn't until after I got back from Florida that I got a chance to actually break in the holster or use it. So last week or something, I decided that I wanted to go check out a potential public land situation for hunting. It's another hobby I want to get into, and I really had no idea what I was doing. I just wanted to kind of go out there on the public land and look around for a potential hunting spot. I don't know what I'm looking for, but I wanted to get out. Took my camera with me, snapped a few pictures, hiked a little bit, had some fun. But it was a good opportunity to take the holster out for a test drive. So prior to leaving, or prior to that decision, I was playing around with the holster, putting it on, seeing if I needed to have it cant anymore. Did I want it to ride higher or lower? All I wound up doing was adjusting the clips up one hole so that the holster rode lower in my pants, and then it was good to go. I strapped it on. I drove out to this public land. It was fairly warm, it was humid. I was overdressed to an extent because I expected to be walking through it, at least waist high brush and things like that, and so I was sweating a fair bit. The hike wound up being about 1.5 miles in, 1.5 miles out. I was pretty wet afterwards between humidity, because this place is actually around a lake, dew from the grass. It's hot. I'm sweating. The holster was an absolute dream. It was beautiful. It got to the point where I actually forgot that I was wearing it. It was so comfortable. It carried well. At no point did I feel as though the gun was riding up out of the kydex holster and coming loose. It didn't feel as though the holster was moving around at all. The one and only issue I had with it was every time I took a step, I heard it creak. And it didn't sound as though it was the holster that was creaking. It sounded like it was the metal clip that holds the holster in sort of binding on my belt. I have an 1.5 inch belt, I think, leather, and it squeaked a little bit every time I took a step. Obviously, it's going to take a little bit of time to sort of break it in, but that was the only annoyance that I had with the holster, and it was minor, to say the least. So all in all, I'm really happy with the holster. I have to wear it a lot more, but again, first impressions, first time out wearing it, I'm very, very happy with it, and I think it was money well spent. If you're in the market for a concealed carry holster, I would strongly suggest taking a look at Concealment Solutions. I will get back to you more as I wear the holster more and give you more of an opinion, but first impressions are double thumbs up. I'm just really happy with Concealment Solutions and my Black Mamba holster. Well, the new segment is here, the Ask the Audience portion that I'm really excited about. Please, I don't want to beg, but please respond to this part so that I have something to feature next week. I really don't want to come back on and say, oh, it wasn't as successful as I'd liked. I don't have any answers, but here's the next discussion topic. So, come on, respond. So, there's a little bit of a story that goes along with this discussion topic, and we'll go through that as we move along. So, Ask the Audience. Earlier, actually yesterday, I was reading the Pennsylvania Firearm Owners Association forum, and I came across this topic entitled, How I Choose to Raise My Children. And basically, it was a post from a father outlining how he taught his children to respect firearms. And basically, you have a father with 3 children. He has a son that's coming of age, and will begin learning about firearms very soon. The age in his household where it is acceptable to handle firearms is 5 years old. You begin the learning process at 5. In addition to the son that's coming of age, he has 2 other children, a 9 and 12-year-old daughter, who were also introduced to firearms at the age of 5. When his oldest daughter, who is now 12, was 9 years old, he purchased her a 9mm pistol and holster of her own. Up until that point, she was using his, and it was always viewed as his. So he wanted to get her something that she could call her own. Well, after she had received the pistol and holster, she argued the point that it was her pistol and her responsibility. Therefore, she should be able to carry it and use it as she saw fit. The father and the mother get together and they discuss it, and they decide that she's right. It's her gun. She should be able to use it, when she sees fit. She should be able to carry it. And they put some stipulations on her. She had to be under the supervision of the husband or wife, or the mother and father, at all times when she was carrying a loaded 9mm pistol on her hip. And that was kind of it. That's kind of where the forum topic sort of lets off, is that his daughter's been responsible. She is now 12 years old, and his other daughter, who is now 9, has just received or will be receiving her own gun very soon, and he's got another 9-year-old that will be carrying a loaded pistol under the supervision of their parents. So afterwards, after this was posted, there was some discussion from other members about the concerns of having a child of 9 years old carrying a loaded gun, and they felt as though that was concerning. It was irresponsible, whatever they may have said. And he responded back later on that they live a very rural lifestyle. For instance, if their children decide they want to have chicken for dinner, they need to come to that conclusion early enough that they can butcher the chicken, slaughter the chicken, pluck the chicken, and then prepare it for dinner. So we're not talking about your next door neighbor living in an apartment with 3 kids all under the age of 12 carrying loaded guns. Or 2 kids. One is just being introduced to firearms. But he also makes the point that they live on a farm, and there is farm equipment that is far more dangerous to them than a loaded pistol under the supervision of parents. So, for the first Ask the Audience question, what I'd like to know is how you feel about children carrying a loaded gun, or children being around firearms in general. Is there an age when it becomes appropriate for children to begin using firearms, and if so, what is that age? How is it determined? What have you done with your children? What are your plans to do with your children, or your nieces, or your nephews, or however it may work? And does the lifestyle of this family change your feeling towards the situation of a 9 and 12-year-old carrying a loaded gun on their hip in a holster under the direct supervision of mother and father? So, there it is. In order to answer this question, or to get involved in the discussion, you can do so in a variety of ways. Just feel free to use the comment section of anywhere this is posted. So, for instance, if you're looking at the show notes on WaltInPA.com for the Shooting the Breeze episode 52 post, feel free to respond in the comments section. It's fine, it works, it's probably the easiest. The excuse me, the other option is to use the YouTube comment section. I'm trying to get better at it. I think I'm getting better at responding to things on YouTube, and the comments are always welcome there. Thumbs up are also always welcome. But in addition to the YouTube comments, you can also do a video response. If you do a video response, it's sort of more appealing to me in the sense that I can download that response and then incorporate it into a future video. So for instance, if you respond with if you get involved in this discussion and you post a video response, I can then download that response and then potentially feature it in next week's episode, where we feature one or two of those responses. So you kind of get where I'm going here. The interaction and the actual having actual substance and not having me read it seems more appealing to the audience. So that's always a big plus. In addition to that, I've also signed up for this service called SpeakerPipe. What it allows you to do is basically record a voice message and send it to me digitally. Everything's in the browser. You don't need to download any software or do anything special. As long as your computer has a microphone and it's relatively quiet in the room that you are speaking, you can easily record a message and fire it off to me. I don't have the means to set up a call-in number. I used to have a Skype-in number, but it just never got used, and it was for Stogie Review, so I just kind of let it lapse. I don't have the funds to purchase one for the blog. If you would like me to purchase one, and you've got money burning a hole in your pocket and you want to donate some, you can head over to WaltInPA.com and click on support. All of the information will be there. But at this time, you can only record a voice message through your computer. If you would prefer to do it on your own and not use the SpeakerPipe software, feel free to fire up whatever voice software you have on your computer, record it, and email me the MP3 file at walt@waltinpa.com. So that sort of gives you a broad understanding of how to respond to this. Hopefully you will respond to this. I don't want to resort to begging, but if I don't get one, I'm definitely going to have to. But there is your Ask the Audience discussion portion of the podcast. The time has come to bring the podcast to a close, but before I do that, I want to thank you for downloading, listening, subscribing to the Shooting the Breeze podcast, the formal gun podcast of WaltInPA.com. If you're interested in getting back to me for whatever reason, I've said something that's inspired you to respond, or I've said something that's irked you or annoyed you, you can contact me in a variety of ways. The easiest of which is to head over to WaltInPA.com and click on the contact button. It will bring up a list of all kinds of stuff, social media outlets, and easiest of all is just a big form where you can just fill in your information, click submit, and it will email me your response or your comment or question. I will do my best to get back to you in a timely manner, and all that good stuff there. In addition to that, you can send me email, audio files, video files at walt@waltinpa.com. I'm on Twitter, Facebook, and Google Plus as Walt White. Twitter is @WaltW, and I think that about does it. The WaltInPA has a Facebook page, which is facebook.com/WaltInPA. If you like it, you click the little thumbs up like button. You will get updates in your timeline whenever I post things there. Mostly it's Shooting the Breeze show notes and announcements for posts that are on the blog. So I try not to spam you or anything. It's, there aren't frequent updates, but there are some, and I appreciate the likeage through Facebook. So I think that about does it. I'm beginning to ramble, and we've hit that 45-minute to an hour sweet spot that I like to be in. So that's it. We're going to call it a day. Again, thank you for checking out episode 52 of Shooting the Breeze, the formal gun podcast of WaltInPA.com. Until next week, stay safe, happy shooting, and I will catch you later.
You can hear Gun Rights Radio Network on Stitcher Smart Radio. Stitcher allows you to listen to your favorite shows directly from your iPhone, Android phone, BlackBerry, or Palm phones, on demand and on the go. Don't have Stitcher? Download it for free today at Stitcher.com or in the App Stores. Stitcher Smart Radio, the smarter way to listen to radio. Gun Rights Radio Network shows can be found under Sources.